Welcome back to the Irish Mags Show, episode 56, and our last episode before the big man in red, and we don't mean that slabhead Harry Maguire, arrives to spread joy and cheer to one and all. Although I think it's fair to say that Harry Maguire only does that for opposition fans these days.
I think so.
But we won't talk about Harry Maguire any further today. We can promise you that. In true Christmas spirit, Krisho is on the piss, we believe. So he's neglected to join us for our little pre-Christmas episode. Thanks, Krisho. Cheers. Hope you're having a good time.
Convenient Man United are playing. Just
exactly.
saying.
I mean, you know what? I was gonna say it, but I think we need to talk about that when we come to potential semi-final opposition, and I think that would be a good time to have a go at him. But the real OGs of the Irish Mag Show are here. The loyal ones are here. And I'm joined by Mr. Irish Mag Santa himself. It's Alan Williamson. Alan, how are you doing, sir?
I'm not too bad after our Christmas party last night, so I'm still alive.
Oh, wait. What is this? What is this Christmas party you speak of? This is breaking news to me. Was I invited?
Not,
oh, wait, I was invited.
You were invited. I did tell you about it last week, and you refused to show up, so it's not my fault that you missed a great night.
In my defense, I was traveling, and one of the locations I was traveling to was Newcastle. So I think it's the fairest reason to miss a game is by actually going to a Newcastle game. So I'm sticking to that, and I won't be stopped. Busy week though. Like we've had a lot going on, Alan, in the last 7 days, particularly in the Irish Mags world. We had Keith Downey on about a week ago. That episode is on YouTube and Spotify and all of the above. Some great stories and insights, particularly into some of the wheelings and dealings around the takeover at the time and on the day. He gave us some great stories from then. We then had a lovely episode with Chris Waff of The Athletic and of Pod in the Time. And that was a really good talk about kind of governance of the club, PSR. Not everyone's favorite topic, but he broke it down really, really well. To set us up for kind of January transfer window expectations. So again, well worth a listen back if you haven't caught that one already. As I mentioned, I was in Newcastle for the Leicester game. And in the meantime, Alan attended not one, but 2 meetups, including a Christmas party and a quiz. So it's been a busy week, but that's Christmas, I suppose, Alan. Right?
Can't wait for it to be over.
I know already. We're recording this on the 19th of December, and we've already had enough for Christmas. Well, bah humbug. But it's fair to say Alan is representing the spirit of Christmas, wearing his ho-ho-how Christmas jumper, while my Jason Tyndall one is still in the wash from the weekend of traveling. So,
I'd say that's in some state.
It got good wearing, considering I got on a bus in Galway at 7:30 a.m. wearing it. So I put it on around 6:30 when I got up, showered, and I took it off roughly about 23 hours later. Let's just leave that there.
Lovely.
And we'll let the listeners do the maths on that one.
Yeah.
But 20 euro well spent. That's all I can say.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. As all the Irish Mags gear goes, when in Newcastle, I got nothing but compliments and questions. Where did you get that? Etc. etc. So as usual, we're in high demand when we're in Newcastle.
We're massive.
Right, on this week's pod, as mentioned, we're going to have a little bit of a pre-Christmas special, and there's loads to talk about. I'm going to be putting Alan under the microscope for a change, because I want to hear stories from this Christmas party. I saw a picture that had Krisho in it, and that's enough for me to just ask questions. So we're going to talk about that and the quiz and how that went down. We'll have a quick chat about Leicester, because obviously I was there. There was a bunch of Irish Mags in attendance. Tev was there as well. Haven't seen him since. Hope he's okay. Then we'll move our attention over to Carabao Cup matters, because, and let me just say this, let's just get it out of our system. Second semi-final in 3 seasons. That feels good. This is where we belong.
It does.
And the hype is real, and the brace yourself for disappointment is also real. But we're sticking with the hype on this week's show. And then we will move on to wrap things up, or to close out the show. We're going to talk, Alan, about what we want for Christmas, but a little bit later than Christmas, because we don't want our Christmas presents till January.
No, we do not.
We'll take them in January. We'll accept them all the way up till the end of January, until the transfer deadline closes. But we're going to be insisting on getting some presents. So we're going to talk about the 3 things we each would like for Christmas in January. Let's crack on. Alan, Christmas party. I saw some pictures. Looked like a great laugh. With a lot of, obviously, when there's a home game on, we get a lot of Irish Mags traveling to the game.
Yes.
and therefore sometimes you're missing some of the more notable figures of the bleaker. But by all
Yes.
accounts, it looked like there was some pretty good numbers at this Christmas party.
Yeah, we had about 25 or 30 in at the old Christmas party, so
Nice.
it was very well attended. Now, that's not to say that there wasn't a good few Irish mags over. I think we had about 20 over at the game. Considering it's a midweek game, that's fairly good going with lads having to take time off work, etc. But yeah, the bleaker meetup was absolutely great crack, start to finish. It kicked off at about 6:30. When the game doesn't kick off at 7:45, that's always a recipe for disaster, you know yourself.
You gotta warm up, just like the players, you have to warm up if you're gonna, rise
like
to the
that.
occasion. Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely everything. So we had a raffle, we had a quiz, we had wonderful finger food put on by Johnny for us, which was absolutely great, and
nice.
it really, really helped. It really, really helped.
Every bit of it.
Yeah. I may as well get the elephant out of the room. So the raffle was won by my fiance Emma.
Yeah. Come on now, this is very Father Ted vibes here. When Ted stands up and he says, it's not uncommon for the organizers of the raffle to sometimes win the prize.
Yeah, I really had to run out. I didn't pick the ticket. I let someone from the audience pick the ticket, and I nearly jumped out the window when I won the raffle. So again, apologies for that. So what can you do?
And Alan, was the prize something that is something you picked out, and it just happens to be your size, and it's exactly what you wanted?
It was a voucher, so I could use it whatever way I want. So it was one size fits all, as they say. So yeah, I'll get that out.
I call absolute bullshit here now, and I'm sure everyone else in the bleaker did as well.
They did.
The Irish mags were officially corrupt, and I'll be writing a strongly worded letter to certain officers in the committee, because this is bullshit. This wouldn't happen if I was there now. Oh dear. Okay. Tell me about the quiz.
The quiz was great. We had a wonderful 4 rounds, 5 questions apiece. I thought it was relatively easy. The winning amount was 13, but it went to a tiebreaker between 3 lads. That was Daniel, that was Anto, and that was Neil.
Okay.
So,
have you got the tiebreaker question?
I had to give 2 tiebreaker questions because I got them.
Oh, I like.
Would you like to hear them?
Go on. Yeah, I mean, if I get the first one right, does that mean I win the quiz because they didn't get the first one?
No, they did get the first one right. They didn't get it was 1 on the second one.
Okay, let's try it. Let's have it. No pressure.
Who were our 3 goal scorers in our 3-3 draw with Liverpool this season?
Oh dear. It's like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Me and my memory. Oh my god. Who were our goal scorers against Liverpool? Isaac.
Yes.
There was 3 individual scorers in this.
3 individual scorers. Yes, there was.
Okay, so Isaac definitely got 1. I want to say Anthony Gordon got 1.
He did.
Who the fuck was the third? There, I knew they were both right. I knew they were both right. I was kind of acting. I knew 2 of them. Was it Joe Linton?
No.
Fuck.
Loop and ball to the back post, missed by Queevy and Kelleher.
Oh, of course, it's Fabian Scher.
Fabian Scher.
Do you know what? He entered my mind, but I was like, no, get that out of your head because he scored again.
Yeah.
And then, okay, I've folded at the quiz already.
Yeah. The question that it was won on by Anthony, who went on to win it, so fair play to him, was what score was our game versus the A-League All-Stars in pre-season? The end of season game. Yes.
Was it 8? It was 8-0 or 8-1? 8-0.
They were the 2 scores I was given. Which one do you want to go with?
I just don't think we scored, did we? No, it was 8-0.
It was 8-0. We lost 8-0. So that's the question that Anthony went on.
I'm sorry now. Isn't it typical of a Newcastle fan to remember the horrendous moment of that 8-0 thrashing for the poor young lads playing?
Yeah.
I couldn't remember that unbelievable equaliser that Fabian Scher scored 2 weeks ago.
Okay. You're ashamed of yourself.
Hangs head in shame. Okay. If you see me in future, folks, just shake your head at me in disgust. I deserve every bit of it. And then buy me a pint.
Yeah.
Good quiz, though. That sounds class.
Thanks very much.
Any other stories that preceded? Any other? Well, basically, did Chris Show do anything stupid or any other notable?
Krisha was relatively sensible, which wasn't very fun. Tev had a great all night. He had a couple of points. He was still texting me at 12 and 1 o'clock in the morning. I was at home in bed, very sensible, because I had work the next morning. I said, I can't do this.
Because you snuck out the back door, I heard.
Absolutely, legged it. That's why I brought the
point.
boss with me. Dragged me out the door, home. But yeah, the lads all seem to have a great night. Absolutely. Have to go spend it.
Good stuff. That sounds class. I am gutted I missed it, genuine. I would have liked to have been there, but I will commit to a visit to the Bleaker in most likely January, because I'm not back to college until kind of mid to late January, so there might be some spare time.
Oh, very nice.
Okay. Excellent. I have to have a look at the fixtures. Speaking of fixtures, Alan,
yes.
We'll start quickly with Leicester. Obviously, it feels like a while ago. At the time of recording, it was 4 or 5 days ago, so a lot's happened. I was obviously at the game. Tev was at the game. I had a couple of other Irish mags on the travels.
Yes.
Once again, I managed to just not see Dino, and that's like the third time I've been in the same city and not seen him. He's an elusive man.
That's impressive.
It is. It's a Dino thing, really. If you know, you know.
I actually walked into him in Connolly Station about a week ago. Like, the two of us didn't see each other, bang, straight into each other. I was like, oh, sorry, mate. I was like, oh, Dino, what's the story? So, yeah, he is one of them type of individuals.
When Irish mags yeah, I don't know. There was talks of him turning up, and then he just never did. I met a couple other people that I hadn't really. Well, I met Chris Barnwell, who I'd met once in the Bleaker before, I think. Absolute legend.
Yes.
I met Jock and his lovely other half, who I want to say her name is Karen, but I could be dreaming that.
I'm names. I'm sorry.
Not to worry. And yeah, I was obviously stuck with Tev for most of it. So I mean, being stuck with Tev is, someone has to mind him, I suppose.
Yeah,
and that turned out to be me. Until I was being minded myself.
Yes.
But as we said, we don't talk about these things. Unbelievable result, unbelievable day. The vibes in the city, obviously it's not just a win, but like an emphatic win. And it really just felt like everybody needed it. We went into this game with an expectation, but also this kind of dread. Because imagine, the alternative of us beating Leicester was anything that wasn't a win, and suddenly the vibes, the Eddie Howe, anti-Eddie Howe, and yeah, the last thing we would have needed was bad vibes, particularly against the manager of the squad. And thankfully, even though Leicester, let's face it, were shit. Yeah. And in fact, the way they set up was so fortuitous to us. They didn't press. They didn't technically sit low, but they didn't press as high either. They just kind of let us at it. And honestly, 4-0, I thought we could have beat them 8-0. I think Jacob Murphy could have scored 4 or 5 goals. Even though he had a pretty poor game. And I think that's been said enough. But ultimately, look, the guy got 2 goals. But just a massive win, and for me, the big takeaway, obviously hindsight is great because we know that Newcastle have since gone on and beaten Brentford in the Carabao Cup quarterfinal, but I think that was a confidence boost, a reassurance that the players needed to kind of say, we are good at football, we have the quality, it can be done. The problem isn't the quality, the problem isn't the personnel. It's more about how we play, how we set up, and that confidence to go and execute it. But I don't know what you thought. Obviously, watching it on TV, it's a slightly different experience, right?
Yeah, it was one of these games I was going into where I'm like, I hate saying we should win games, but like, we should be beating Leicester at home. Let's be very honest about it. But when you're going into a game saying we should be beating these, we haven't exactly been playing the greatest of football in the last couple of weeks. What is going to happen? Now, we were out of the blocks lightning quick, I have to say. Maybe the first 3-4 minutes we weren't exactly on the game, but after that I think we took control of it, and it was just a great performance all around. But yeah, going into it, the nerves were certainly there. You touched on Murphy, and look, he got 2 goals. He should have had 4. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And the whole thing of, well, he got 2. That's looking at stats again. There's a stat for everything. He played poorly at the end of the day. Yeah. It was. Yeah. You're beating a dead horse saying these things, but unfortunately, it's what has to be said. He didn't have a great game. He got 2 goals. He was the difference maker when it comes to it, but he should have been the difference maker a hell of a lot earlier, and that's what we need to improve on. But yeah, look, we got the job done. I thought it was the way Leicester set up, as you said, was absolutely unbelievable. That's probably the worst midfield I've ever seen in a Premier League match that Leicester put out. Like 5-6 years ago, we were linked to Hamza Chowdhury on loan. He's still playing for Leicester. That's his first Premier League minutes. It's just shocking. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. Essentially, we walked through the whole game. It never really looked like it was going to be anything other than us getting the victory. Thankfully, the goals came. That was a big thing. We looked good in parts, but we weren't getting goals. Saturday, it just kind of clicked into place and everything went right for us. So it was a nice L win for us, I have to say.
I don't know, was Ruud van Nistelrooy attempting to, to do a bit of shithousery or mind games by just kind of saying, yeah, I remember when these fellas had the opportunity to sign Hamza Shooter at the end of a window and were too mean to pay $500,000 to make it happen, and therefore sign nobody and everything went to shit. So maybe he was just like, I'll throw him in and just mess with their heads.
For the laugh.
It didn't work.
Thanks.
Thanks. Yeah, cheers. Yeah. Obviously in the dugout next to him was the ultimate shithousery in Jason Tyndall and his ways, and I think the two of them even came to blows at some point.
It looked like something was happening. I don't know what happened now, but it did look like they were at each other's throats, shall we say?
Yeah, I was in the Leases, so like it was kind of in line with where I was sitting, but obviously a little bit further away. But from what it looked like Van Nistelrooy wasn't happy with something that he was mouthing off the fourth official, and I reckon Tyndall just went over, being a bollocks, and went, shut up the fuck, will you? And I think Van Nistelrooy just didn't take well to that. But that's just par for the course for Jason Tyndall at the end of the day. Right, the only other thing I'll say on Leicester, Alan, and again, I always harp on about this because you don't get to go to games often. I think between us, we get over every maybe 2-3 months at best. Yeah. But just the one thing about being there is what you can see in terms of the player movement, and just how good these guys are. And I want to I'll shout out Tonali briefly because I want to talk in a bit more detail after the Brentford game. Tonali's movement, unbelievable, all over the pitch. The runs Isak was making, and in the second half, I was behind the Leeds' goal and they were running at, like, I was watching him just turn defenders, and like he turns, he looks like a man that has a low center of gravity, which is hard when you're as big and kind of, I don't want to say lanky, but like, you know what I mean? He's kind of gangly, like, but his ability to shift his weight and kind of turn from right to left, just defend, like slow defenders who are slow in the turn have no idea what to do with it. And I thought he was brilliant.
He had poor Yannick Vestergaard turned inside out and upside down. That man was running around way more times than anything else that match. I don't know what the story is with the two centre halves. It was Cody as well. Was the other one. He was brutal.
Cody was in there, and then I think Caleb Oakley landed.
Yeah,
they're all a bit too big and slow to handle. I think I think when in the optics kind of world, you think, oh well, Isak is kind of a bigger striker. He's not like, I don't know, like he's just not super rapid or anything like that. He is. Do you know what I mean? And he turned the ball inside out. But the one player for me, and I think he got man of the match, and I was just so impressed, was Lewis Hall. And we keep harping on about it, and we're almost deja vu. But the kid is getting better and better and better. And the one difference for me, Alan, I don't know if you noticed this as well, because what Lewis Hall is great at is obviously getting up and down the line, but it's super energy getting forward. And as he's been getting more and more confident and comfortable, he's been overlapping Anthony Gordon. It's starting to work well. Against Leicester, suddenly he's cutting inside a lot more on his left. And he's just turning lads inside out, passing 2 or 3 of them by, and actually like initiating attacks. And there's not many left backs that are cutting inside that way. Obviously, Pep will say he's pioneered the whole thing with whoever, I mean, João Cancelo is probably the best example.
The big one.
Like Teo Hernandez kind of tends to do this sometimes as well. But Lewis Hall just has, whether Eddie Howe has told him to do this or not, who knows? But Lewis Hall has the confidence and the technique, the ball control to do it, and to do it at will confidently. And even if it doesn't work out, he can make it back and recover. Unbelievable.
He's kind of taken on the old Trippier role where he moves into the middle and acts as another central midfielder. And it's like deja vu when you see him coming near. Like, he's exactly like Trippier, but on the left-hand side. It's unbelievable. The other thing that he's improved on so much this year is his heading. I used to think he couldn't head the ball. And the last couple of weeks, he's winning headers and duels when the ball's being lumped in on top of him, which is great to see. But he set up a goal against Leicester with a header back across from Bruno just to nod it back in. I was like, everything that you kind of said, look, he has an issue there. He has an issue. He's improved in every aspect of his game. It's only going to keep getting better for us, which is great.
Absolutely. I think his heading stats were like he was either the first or second, like in terms of number of headers, one successful headers, one or whatever it is, like kind of aerial duels or whatever the actual stat is. Nothing but praise for him. And how long will it be until we stop saying he's getting better? He's getting better each week or each month. The ceiling here it's
terrifying. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And you also mentioned set pieces, because I'm going to come to that very shortly. So we started that game week with a 4-0 at Leicester. So we said it was 3 big games for Eddie Howe, right? We'd Leicester at home, Brentford at home, and then obviously Ipswich away. So 1 out of 3, check, complete. Then we move. That sounded like VAR. I didn't even know it was under that when I said it. We move on to Brentford, Carabao Cup quarterfinal at home again. Obviously wasn't at this game. You were watching it in the bleaker with the lads. I was watching at home here. Again, we'll just have to get out of the way, Alan. If I meet Sandro Tonali in the street, I may have to just like buy him a pint or give him a hug or just follow him around. I don't know, because that man, he is a phenomenal footballer, a phenomenal athlete. It's outrageous. Now, again, slight caveat, poor opponent. Brentford weren't great, Leicester were worse. But it's outrageous how good and how far ahead he is when it comes to, obviously, his ability, but like the way he sees the game, how hard he works, how easy he makes difficult things look. This is regardless of him scoring 2 goals. Genuinely, like against Leicester, he was phenomenal. I don't know. I feel like it's just it feels like a long time since I've just liked a player this much who's played for Newcastle. As in, like, I'm just like, we're so lucky to have him, and obviously we're lucky to have Isak, we're lucky to have Bruno, but maybe it's an element of repaying the club for everything that went on for the last kind of 12 months. But oh my God, what a player!
He's just outrageous. It's the first time in my lifetime, really, where I'm looking at someone going, look, I said it a couple of months ago on the pod, Tonali will be more important than Bruno by the end of this season.
I remember. I teed you up for this, Alan.
You did. I'm thankful for this, because when we signed Tonali, I was like, we're not going to sign Sandro Tonali. He's basically the AC Milan captain. It's just not going to happen. And then it happened, and we're now sitting here looking at a world-class midfielder playing for our club. And look, I'm saying this, Bruno is absolutely unbelievable. He's unreal. But Tonali is just that little bit above him in my eyes. He's just so good. It's untrue. He doesn't need to see the pass. It's already there. He hits the ball before. He doesn't need to set himself. The ball's getting whipped wherever he's going. It's not 2 touches before the pass goes in. It's first time every single time. And he's just, everything goes through him. It's been said that he is playing in the 6 more so with us now. So he's playing with his back to the ball more so. And he's have to turn, pivot, and get the ball out. But he's just growing into that role. And it's so good to see. He is just so good.
And it's almost counterintuitive to think we were kind of playing him as an 8, kind of on the right of a midfield 3. He's doing all right. And then when we say, right, well, let's drop you back, give you some specific responsibility, and then he goes and scores 2 goals. And we'll come on to the goals in a minute, because they were, particularly the second one was very well worked. But just sticking with him and Bruno, I think the more I think about it in terms of strategy, it was never going to be an easy conversation to say to Bruno, right, we don't want you in the middle of this 3. Because if you think about Bruno's role, it was never about him being a defensive 6. It was about being the quarterback or the engine or whatever you want to call it. And one of Bruno's favorite things in the whole wide world is to drop back and receive the ball from either a centre back or a full back, particularly taking short kickouts and all that kind of stuff. Taking it on the turn, riding a tackle, beating a man, and either winning a foul or spreading. And that's where you're the orchestrator. And it was always going to be a tough ask to say to Bruno, after how good he's been for the last, let's say, 2 seasons, yeah, we don't want you to do that anymore. We want you to push up. You're going to receive less of the ball. But let's balance it. Here's the captain's armband.
Yeah.
Now you're important. And the more I think about it, I would like to think it's strategic, even though it's taken a while to get here this season. I'd love to think that comes into it, because now what we're seeing is Tonali arguably being on the ball more and getting a little bit more limelight in terms of you're seeing him more when he's on the ball. But ultimately, Bruno's now evolving into a more attacking role. He's picked up, 2-3 assists in the last 2-3 games? He knows it as well, because he's tweeting about it. Plus, obviously, scoring against Leicester. He might not have scored that goal playing in his normal role. No. And obviously, when he joined the club, he again, it was Leicester as well, actually, in that 3-2, where he nearly took off his shorts as well as his kit. That was because he was bombing in and bombing forward. And I'm just starting to think that maybe it's a hindsight thing, but there's a strategy here. And actually, I think last night against Brentford was one of Bruno's better games this season. And maybe just that little bit of freedom, getting more comfortable with the role, and allowing Tonali to make Bruno look better, which Bruno's not had at Newcastle, because Bruno's been making everyone else look better. And again, it's only 2 games. It's really hard not to be carried away. But I'm really liking what I'm seeing here.
I'm loving it. I'm absolutely loving it. And it's there are signs of things to come. And I can't wait to see what else comes from it. It's going to be a good partnership to see. Let's be honest about it. I can't wait.
Yeah, and I know full well. You know, when you spoke about Tonali before, not only were you saying you thought he could progress beyond Bruno and become more important, but you also thought he potentially was a replacement for Bruno.
Yes,
if we were going to cash in on the old PSR thing. This is getting interesting now. We're approaching January, right? Man City, and it's lovely. Man City are in the shit. And I'm throwing out there, Pep is a fraud, and they're on the way out. No, okay, it's too far. But they're in trouble. They're in real trouble, and it seems to all start from midfield for them. Obviously, missing Rodri, and the main name going around in circles, apart from your man Zubamendi over in Sociedad, is Bruno. And there's 2 ways I look at this. So one, Bruno could answer a lot of their questions. He can be the 6, he can be the 8, and in that sense, if they really want him, they're going to have to put up some serious cash for him. And everybody knows they're desperate, and everybody knows they have the cash, because they didn't spend very much in the summer. They made a fortune selling Alvarez and the like. So that puts us in a very strong position. Now, I don't particularly want Bruno to leave. Of course I don't, right? Everyone has a price. If they land in with north of 100 million, impossible to turn down. But what could happen is, now that Bruno is being pushed forward, it might just make either them rethink, okay, is he really what we need if we really need a 6? Or it might also make Bruno less inclined to go. He might want to stay around. He might enjoy getting his goals and assists, plus being club captain, plus playing with Tonali. And if we go on a bit of a run between now and January, he might say, well, I'm going nowhere at least until the end of the season. They're interesting outcomes. I would rather Bruno stay. That's how I feel about it always. But what are your thoughts on it in terms of Bruno, the new role, staying in Newcastle? Is Tonali and Bruno something we expect to see for a long time? Or if you got a big bag of money, Alan, would you?
Absolutely be tempted. I don't, as you said, we don't want Bruno to go. But we have to be very, very, very realistic. Paul Mitchell said it. We have to get better at trading players. Villa are still spending the Grealish money somehow. I don't understand it. They're still spending that Grealish money. They sold that £100 million player, and they have spent 400 million of it. If we were to do it, it would be devastating to see Bruno go. Do not get me wrong. Devastating to see Bruno go. But what we'd be able to bring in with the money that comes from it would seriously, seriously soften that blow. Let's be very honest about it.
It would. It would need to be a pretty good sum of money, because it's not just for me, it's not just the money, it's the message. It's who's going to look at what we're doing and say, is this the place I want to come to if they're selling off better? If I'm a particularly talented player, and I am, Alan.
Yes.
I'd be looking at going, well, I want to play with Bruno. I don't want to replace him. That kind of mentality. So I think there's a message there. So there's other parts of it, I suppose, is my point. In terms of the fallout.
One thing that could happen, if Man City came in with 80 million and a player.
Well, I'm glad Calvin Phillips is no longer there, because that would be too tempting for Eddie Howe to say no to. He chased him for so long.
Can't even get into the Ipswich team.
No, and he shouldn't.
No.
And the player is interesting. It would need to be a player in a role we need. All their centre backs seem to be injured. I don't know who they'd have that we would want or need substantially enough.
James McAtee.
James McAtee is interesting, but at the same time, if you thought he was good enough, I'd just be aiming to go and buy him the same way Chelsea went for Cole Palmer. Is he enough leverage to make you kind of confident enough to lose Bruno? I don't know. It's an interesting thought, though. Now you've got my football manager brain going insane here. What deals you can do? Okay, back to Brentford then. I want to talk about set pieces, Alan, over the last 2 games, because this will help us talk about the goals. Tonali's finish of the first one was obviously brilliant. The technique, just the control, the swerve in the ball, live for that.
just on that, so me and Krisha were outside talking about what was going to happen in the quiz and stuff like that, and I just got talking about the team and stuff like that, and I turned to him and I was like, he said Bruno was going to score, and I said, you're wrong. Sandro Tonali, the ball's going to drop to him about 25 yards out, and he's going to absolutely thunder bastard, I didn't say that word, the ball into the back of the net.
I'll approve.
And he absolutely did, and I could not believe it. And I was like, I turned to him, and to be fair to him, in the middle of the bleaker, he turned around, he said this to me outside, and I was like, I should have put money on it, but I didn't, because gamble aware and all that jazz. But I said he was going to score, and he did, and it was just such a good goal. It was unbelievable. The technique of that strike is unbelievable. It moves away from the keeper. He starts going one way, the ball goes the other, and he's going, well, I can't react to that. So it was just unbelievable.
And the thing I love about it, it was so intentional. Yeah. Everything about how he struck the ball was exactly how he intended to kick. And that's what he has. Not only the foresight, the quick thinking, the technical ability to then pull it off. It's unbelievable. And no offense to Sean Longstaff, but that's over the bar probably 8 times out of 10 for Sean Longstaff. The second one, though, I really enjoyed, Alan. And overall, I harped on about this a few times before, how bad we are at set pieces, or have been at set pieces. It was basically, I think the problem was because we had such good delivery of the ball with Trippier or Gordon or whoever, it was like, well, eventually Dan Burns is going to head one of them. And it's just not happening. And we were like one of the lowest in the league for goals scored from set pieces directly. It's almost like in the last 3 weeks, we went, right, okay, we're shit. Fuck this. Let's do something about it.
Yeah.
And we used to do this, right? The season we qualified for the Champions League, we used to have creative, clever routines. I always think of this Almiron one. I can't remember the exact game, but there was a Miggy Almiron goal from a very clever set piece. I think Bruno was involved. And it was just baffling me why we're no longer doing this. To the point, I actually said this on a True Faith podcast today. It wouldn't surprise me if Jason Tyndall is just bold enough to kind of go, let's just pretend we're really shit at set pieces for a couple of games, for about 14 months. And then we'll just go at it hard for 2-3 weeks. And by the time anyone notices, we'll have picked up 3 wins from it. That's the dream world I like to live in.
That's
but the execution of these set pieces. You mentioned Hall's header across to Bruno in the Leicester game.
Yes.
Perfectly executed, right? Onto the head of Hall, unmarked at the back post. The Tonali one for me, and again, it was, I'm glad I was able to see everything at the time it was kicked, because you could see, I think it was Joe Linton and one other player, I can't remember who it was.
It was Joe Linton, Dan Burn, Bruno, and was Joe Linton still in the pit? Yeah, I think it was Joe Linton. The three of them blocked runs.
But they all kind of pulled away as well and took their men with them. So they took the men with them first and then stopped them getting anywhere near it.
Yeah.
And Tonali just arrives in late to the party.
Yeah.
You know, I'm here, lads. And still had a lot of work to do. Slight deflection. But just perfectly worked as a set piece all day.
Yeah, absolutely unreal. The delivery from Gordon as well was 10 out of 10. Yeah. It was just absolutely everything about that set piece went to perfection. You couldn't have asked for a better one, let's be honest about it. And as you said, the technique of that volley by Tonali, to keep that down, to hit the target, yes, took a slight deflection. It was on target. It was always going to the back of the net. Just unreal.
Yeah, and it was, as you said, the connection, because as it was happening, it was like it was too high to head. It was kind of too low to do a full volley.
Yeah.
So he's just guided it. But again, he knew where to go with it, and he had the technique to do it.
He's unbelievable.
He should have had a hat-trick. And we're talking about set pieces. There's an obvious set piece. It's between Gordon and Lewis Hall, really. There's that little back heel, and then it's thrown across. I think Isak was the first one to kind of, I don't want to say get in the way, but if there was a step over or a clever dummy, I think Tonali, it was going to...
He's rolling back to him, yep.
Yeah, there's a lot of bodies now, but that was a beautifully worked little set piece as well. Again, second half.
Yeah. Everything about the set pieces is just, it's come good. It was nearly the same routine we scored against Leicester with for the Murphy first goal, when it went in, ball was flicked back down and it was cut back to the edge of the box. Isak, he tried to do like a back heel at the start and it just didn't work, and then he smashed it over the bar. But I was like, I seen Tonali standing at the edge of the box as well, and I was like, just let it roll to him. Didn't happen, but come here. We just looked so dangerous. Anytime the ball was in and around their box, dead, like from set pieces, dead balls, everything. We just looked like we were going to score every single time. And it's great to see, because we do have a gigantic team. We need to be scoring more goals from corners and set pieces. And we are now.
It is, but it's the ones that are working aren't really reliant on those gigantic men. But what we have done is we've probably looked at those two opposition, Vestergaard and whether it's Okoli. I know Wout Faes, I don't think he started, but like tall defenders. Yeah. There's no point doing high in-swingers or out-swingers. And same with Brentford, like Nathan Collins, Ethan Pinnock, and Christopher Iyer. These are all big fellas. But long may it continue is my kind of thing. Yeah. You don't have to do it all the time. Variety. If you're going to get 6, 8, 9 corners in the game, we need to be having half of them at least with these kind of creative, clever solutions, because it might not work 1 out of 3, 4 times, but every now and again
one will work. Yes,
one will come good, and it's so enjoyable. You're just rubbing your hands circly when it happens. Love to see it. Okay, set pieces. Tonali, I feel like I could just lie down now. I'm just so happy. The last goal then against Brentford, Fabian Schär.
Yes,
talk to me about Fabian Schär, Alan. 3.5 million, many eons ago. Apparently, he came out a few weeks ago and said he could have moved to Arsenal because he just wasn't even getting games. And there was this fallacy going around that he could only play in a back three.
It's the Steve Bruce fallacy. That's like, I just don't want to talk about that. Let's be honest about it. 3.5. It's the best 3.5 million the club has ever spent.
Yes,
like pound for pound. It's very hard to say this when we have the record Premier League goal scorer in our club, but pound for pound when it comes to it, I think he is the best signing the club has ever made. It's insane.
Don't let Shay Given hear you say that, but I'll allow it for now. Shay's retired. But you're right, because in terms of how much he's come on under Eddie Howe and how important he's proved, and let's face it, his availability. I mean, we always joke that the man goes down in nearly every game, but he gets up in every game as well. And some of the goals he has scored, the importance, the quality, all of, like, even the goals he has scored alone, regardless of his defensive input or output, are worth 3-4 times the money we paid for.
Yes, absolutely.
It's crazy. And I know we talk, we need a right-sided centre-back, and we do, and we will. And it's not just to replace him. It's to provide competition. It's someone younger to cover for him, to learn from him, and obviously to give him breaks when he needs it to, because if we're going to play 40 games this season, 45 games with cups, you can't expect Fabian Schär to play every single one of them. It's just not.
That's not feasible.
How unselfish was Bruno?
I couldn't believe it. I couldn't. The ball dropped, and I was like, he's hammering this thing as hard as he can into the roof of the net, and it flicked back across, and I was like, oh yeah, he actually did. He did the right thing. He didn't do the thing I'd do. I would have hammered that thing as hard as I could. Like
everyone would, and you're already winning the game. When you're 2-0 up, you're like, I'm going for it, and he just goes, nah, I'll just give it to my buddy. Excellent. I mean, it needs to be a team that clicks. It's only in a team that clicks you'll see that. When you have a team that's a little bit out of form or a little bit kind of out of sorts, you don't often see that in a team full of individuals, let's say, who are trying too hard. But because I feel like because we're just in the zone in terms of the team gelling, it's probably the first time in I don't know when that we had the same 11 starting 2 games in a row. I think that also contributes to the set piece success, because the 3 fellas you're training set pieces on in the training ground, when there's the 3 fellas on the pitch, you take one of them out, might not have practiced as many times, just might not be the same level of pace, timing, whatever you want to call it. I think it's a similar story when Bruno had the peripheral vision to know Fabian Schär was there, because things are clicking, and it just summed it up really, really well.
It's unreal.
We're so like we just spent the last 30-40 minutes just like drooling, and
this is great.
We're enjoying it. We're enjoying it far too much. We're really setting things up to go horribly wrong against Ipswich, which we'll come to in a minute. Okay, just to cap the Brentford result then, Alan. Semi-final, as we speak, Man Red are playing Spurs. Do we have a score update, actually? Okay, I can tell you Tottenham 1, Manchester United 0. Dominic Solanke scored after 15 minutes. It's currently half-time. So that's where we are, folks. Live on the pod. There's some insight for you. personally, for me, if I could choose the opponent, I could choose the most least likely one as we speak, because I would have loved to draw Man United. And the main and only reason is they had that other previous manager who, for me, was a fraud. And the only reason he kept his job was because they were poxing their way through to Carabao Cup finals and FA Cup finals. So I just want to wipe the floor with that, get them in the next round, knock them out so they can't fall back on that when they have a shit season. And they do go have a shit season. They finish lower in the league than us. And everyone has a great time. As it stands, Spurs are winning. And I think it would be hard not to say you prefer to take Spurs over Arsenal or Liverpool. Because again, Spurs have a hard time with us. So that's where I'd probably hang my hat. I would love to get, obviously, one of the winner of tonight's game. Is there any reason why you'd feel differently and or more ambitious to say, well, let's take on one of the big ones and knock them out?
Obviously, I want to get to the final, X, Y, and Z. That's neither here nor there. Eddie Howe hasn't beaten Liverpool at St. James's Park.
Have many managers though?
No, it's like it's not a thing. I just feel like, especially with it being a home and away, it's 2 legs, so you have to go to Anfield first. You have to bring them back to James's, and we cannot be more than a goal behind. But
the other thing is we've got Fabian Schär and Bruno are both out for this first leg. Yeah, so that's another thing to think about. Yes, okay. What about Arsenal?
Selfishly, I want them in the final so I can beat my brother's little team. That's my God honest truth.
That's a completely fair and rational reason. Like, there's absolutely no issues here with that. That's football 101, football fandom, especially in the family.
Yes.
So we'll definitely allow that. So what you're saying is we're going to have to beat Liverpool and Arsenal to win the Carabao Cup, Alan.
Yes.
The two most informed teams in the Premier League.
And it's a good thing I booked my hotel for Wembley then, isn't it?
Oh, he really is the spirit of Christmas, folks. I'm glad you're wearing that Christmas jumper.
I said at the start of the year, we're winning the Carabao Cup. I have to back my predictions, don't I?
I tell you what, if it comes in, we're going to have to find out that octopus. You know, the octopus can predict the future and change his name to Alan, because I think it's currently Paul, and I'm predicting nothing right these days. So. Okay, well, we will find out after this pod is finished, folks. So by the time you've listened to this, you'd probably already know who we've got in the semi-final. Mm-hmm. But we'll roll on, and I'm really looking forward to it. If we can keep kind of ticking along, keep things going nicely, and really importantly for me, just keep fit. Keep Isak fit, keep Tonali fit, keep Bruno,
there's a month in between the 2 legs, though, for the semi-final.
Is there really?
It's the week of January 3rd is the first leg, and it's the week of February 6th is the second leg. Yeah, I think it's that. There's a significant break in between them. It's all to do with the Champions League. With the 700,
I haven't seen legs spread that wide since I was a teenager, I'd say. I'm sorry, I couldn't.
That was dreadful.
I'm leaving that in there. That is wild, actually. That's really
it's mental. I seen that earlier on Twitter, and I was like, that can't be true. And I was like, oh, okay, it is true. I was like, that's so strange. I was like, what's going on there? But
we'll see what happens once they all get fixed, because obviously all 3 of our potential opponents have European football going on, so it'll be interesting to see when these fixtures all land.
Yes.
I'd love to see us get to a final again. It's just get some revenge. Okay, let's move on from Dreamland to, let's go from one dream to another. We're going to wrap up the pod with a little bit of Alan's fully in his prediction Nostradamus mode, so we're going to finish off with a bit of prediction meets Christmas wishes and hope, because we want to have a chat about kind of potential targets in January, and we're going to go with the assumption that it's a Christmas miracle and that we're able to bring in 3 players in January.
Yes,
and there's a couple of names have been floating around, but really what we're going to do, but just between the 2 of us, taking into account a bit of realism, a bit of what's within our means, players who might be realistic enough that they're achievable targets, and on the assumption that we could bring in 3. They don't all have to be permanent as well. Eyes emoji. We're going to name our 3 players that we would each love to see come in January. I don't think we're going to get 3, but it's not Christmas without a bit of Christmas spirit and hope and blind drunkenness. So that's what we're doing. Blind, drunken transfer windowness. So what we'll do is we'll alternate, Alan. And what I'm going to ask you to do is if you can name your first player and position, and then tell me why.
So this has come straight off the Twitter sphere of me falling into a rabbit hole of watching the videos of him being linked to us. It's Abdu Kuzanov. Plays for RC Lens, and he's an Uzbek centre half. The man is lightning quick. He looks like a serious player. He's only 23. He is very, very good looking. But come here, highlight reels are always great. But I have to say,
I just thought you meant he's a handsome man. You said he's very good looking. I was thinking he must be just a handsome man, is he? I'm looking him up here because I'm not going to lie, I hadn't heard of him before you mentioned him, which is strange considering the amount of hours I've spent on this Football Manager game. Obviously, our Lons are playing in Ligue 1, so and they've had a couple of good seasons. I like it, and what I in particular like about it is he's not unknown, but there's value to be got here for a player of his age, for the club he's at, not necessarily Europe on the cards. It'd be interesting to know if this is real, and if any other clubs are sniffing around.
That it stinks of a Paul Mitchell deal. It's an out of nowhere kind of up and coming, and you're going, Again, highlight reels make everyone look unbelievable, but this kid looked good. I was very enjoyed watching it. It did look good.
Well, here's one for you. Who was Fabian Scherer before we signed him? Nobody had heard of him, right? So let's go with that. Okay, I like this. Interestingly, the first name on my list is also a centre back. And this is the football romantic in me. I came across this guy quite a long time ago. There is a article on The Athletic, and I think it was written by Jacob Whitehead, who listeners may know from Pod on the Tyne podcast appearances. He actually went over to AIK in Sweden, which is the club that Alexander Isak originated at, as did my first desired signing, also named Isak, but it's his first name. His name is Isak Hien, Hien. So he is I think he's about 6'4" centre back. He's currently plays for Atalanta. Now the context here is not only has he played for AIK in the youth team with Alexander Isak, not only has he played for Sweden 11 times alongside Alexander Isak. Not only have they the same name. I want to say 3 seasons ago, this guy was playing in like the first or second tier of Swedish football. His rise has been rapid. And he's now playing for Atalanta, who currently, at the time of recording, have won 10 games in a row in I think, maybe League and Cup in Europe. I'm not sure exactly. No, it's definitely not including Champions League because I think they lost to Liverpool. I think they've won 10 games in the league in a row, or at least domestic. Now, they are in Europe, as we said. He would cost a pretty penny, but there's enough in here in the fact that he's also Swedish. He's right-footed, can play in a back 4 or back 3, because he does usually a back 3 for Atalanta and a back 4 for Sweden. But I do think there would be a sizable chunk of money. But as we saw in the summer, it looks like the club are willing to fork over a sizable chunk of money for centre back. So that's our first 2 nominations. Centre back, box ticked. I would say your one definitely would be more attainable, I would say, value-wise, price-wise. Again, depending on what the club are willing to spend. Right. Next pick, Alan Williamson.
My next pick is Tyler Dibbling, Southampton's right winger. We were linked with him a couple of years ago when he was a kid. I remember he scored, I think it was a hat-trick at St. James's Park for the under-18 Southampton. He scored 3 of the same goals. He scored the set from 25 yards into the bottom corner.
They're actually, I think there's a clip of all 3 on YouTube or somewhere, Twitter somewhere,
It's insane, and he has just gotten better and better and better. Even like I watched the Southampton Man United game a couple of weeks ago. He had that entire Man United backline terrified. He's no fear. He doesn't put the head down, but he goes by his player. He looks dangerous anytime he's on the ball, and he's young. He's English. He's exactly what Eddie Howe wants.
He's an Eddie Howe. I was just going to say
he's just Eddie Howe's dream. So. Now, he will cost significant money because I did see that former Southampton manager Russell Martin talking about him last week, saying that Manchester United bid 35 million for him in the summer, and they were like, which leg do you want? So it's,
wow.
By the sounds of things, they're valuing him at about 60, 70 million, which just is not feasible for someone of that caliber in my eyes.
It's an interesting timing is very important here for a couple of reasons. So, like, obviously, Southampton have just sacked Russell Martin. If they go down, there's a bit more value to be had. As soon as the player gets relegated, either there's a relegation clause or, the price just drops because the club don't have as strong a hand to play, namely because the player will want to leave when he knows he's good. The risk here is that if he doesn't leave in January, and whoever, I can't remember if they've hired a manager yet, actually.
No, they haven't.
If somebody comes in and turn things around and he's a key part of that and they stay up, his price is suddenly 20, 30 million more.
Yeah.
That's just how it works in the Premier League. So timing is important on this one. If you were going to go in January, I don't know. And then it's a really tough one. It would depend if Southampton have kind of accepted their fate in terms of going down. That'll be really interesting to see. I like the shout, though. He's an unbelievable player. Socks down.
Yeah.
He's one of them.
He looks like he's playing in the street. He just loves football by the looks of things, and it's exactly what you want.
He socks down, but he's not a dick like Jack Grealish. Let's just say it like it is.
Yes.
Alan, you won't be surprised to hear that my shout for the same position is not only a player that I've been banging the drum about on this podcast for far too long now, but it emerges. It's a really serious target, it seems. I'm seeing it from the Telegraph and Guardian and all the different transfer places. Johan Bakayoko, this one is growing legs pretty quickly at the moment. Yeah. But we've had this before and it's gone nowhere. Again, I've talked about this player before here. Rapid, quick, left-footed, plays down the right-hand side, loves to cut inside, has really good numbers, granted in the Eredivisie. Is known for being a bit wild when it comes to final third, but I think it was last season he got 14 goals and 14 assists or something crazy. Not as prolific this season, but still is racking up. He's a goals and assists kind of a wide player, because sometimes you get a player who's one and not the other. For me, this one makes sense. I think it's a little bit low risk. I don't think his value is going to be crazy high. And again, timing, he's young enough. He hasn't played that many times for Belgium, let's say. I think contractually he's not, I don't think the club are in a fantastic place. I don't think he's got a huge amount of time left. And I feel like this is a player that if we don't take him, someone else will, and we'll regret seeing him play for them. And that's how I felt when Villa signed Moussa Diaby. Now, hindsight, that was a bullet dodged. I don't feel like we'd have this with this player.
No, he looks the real deal. Let's be honest about it. I think he has more assists in one season than Miggy has for Newcastle in 5.5. Yeah, I think he has 17 assists in the last calendar year of football or something like that.
Yes, I'm with you. Yeah. Because he got 14 in the league last season.
Yeah.
I think, or might have been more overall. Okay.
He has 15 assists for us. He got 17 last year.
I know the leagues are different and all that.
Yeah.
He's playing for PSV, who are arguably the best team in that league, but he still has to do it. He's still doing it for a big club. He's rated highly. I think this is a serious contender for a realistic signing that would fall into our bracket. And the need is there. Okay. Let's see. If that goes through, Alan, just like you with your Tonali predictions, I'll be on here opening a bottle of champagne with the biggest "I told you so" ever. Okay, this is easy because it looks like our last shout is the same, and I would imagine this is because both of us reached the point where we thought, we're not going to have much money left to spend on the third player, so maybe we'll need to dip into the loan market. And apparently, there's a player who's very well known on the Irish Mags show to the Irish Mags listeners, Alan, who could be available for loan.
Supposedly, now, since this has also come out, their owner has come out and said that it's not going to happen. But then again, do owners ever come out and say, yes, they're for sale or yes, they're available? Not, let's be honest about it.
Positions of power.
Yes. So it's the one, the only Evan Ferguson. I think that could be a massive signing for us if we somehow pulled it off. But would have to be with an obligation or an option to make permanent. I'm not bringing someone in to develop them for another club to send them back to score another hat-trick against us next season. He has all the attributes to fill into exactly the type of striker you'd want to not be bringing off the bench week in, week out, but to have the option. The only issue is what then happens to Will Osula. That's what you're kind of hemming and hawing about there.
See, the thing, it's a hard one because Brighton probably want to keep this player around. Danny Welbeck is playing well for them, right? But Danny Welbeck isn't going to be there forever. They need Evan Ferguson to be banging for them. But I think this is more coming from Evan Ferguson's side. I need to play football, lads. You know, apparently Fulham are mentioned, which is probably a good shout because apart from Raul Jimenez, they don't have much options.
No.
But looking at us, we've got a lot of games to come.
Yes.
We've got a really good coach and coaches. We can give him minutes, even if it was for the 6 months and we didn't have him again. Now, I would love to see him somehow made permanent, but I think there'd be a big fee. Or if there's an option, fine, and it'll probably be a fairly high option. If it was just 6 months, it gives us something we need because as well as Oslo, I thought did pretty well against Brentford. He showed he can be quite a good target man, but he's raw as hell and he's young as hell.
Yes.
I don't think he'd turn around and go, well, what's that mean for me? Now, if Ferguson was to stay on or to come and then stay in permanent, then naturally that changes things. But we need a body in there, and I don't think it would be hard to say to Will Osula, look, we've got big ambitions. You're only just joined. You're only in the door. You're still very young. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
I'd be more, would Brighton be willing? That would be my problem. Versus loaning him to a Fulham or West Ham.
That's the other issue in that one.
That would be the dream. Wow. Okay. So any three, please. Isaac Hien, Abdou Kusanov, Johan Bakayoko, Tyler Dibbling, Evan Ferguson. And worst case scenario, Randall Cole and Moani at PSG, apparently available on loan. Could be another one to think about.
Wouldn't be a bad
one. We're all clear on the positions and roles we want to fill.
Yes.
Okay, listeners, let us know. Pick three yourselves. Let us know in the comments, wherever you can leave comments. YouTube is usually the place. Throw them in the comments. We'll have a look, and we might have a read back through some of them on our next show. Because January is coming, and we're going to have a transfer special as well to follow with it. Right, we're just about, like he said, eyes. If that guy ever shows up, it'll be
if he ever shows up.
If he ever shows up. Before we wrap up, Alan, we've got Ipswich away in the third of these big, important kind of pre-Christmas fixtures. We won't go into too much detail. Obviously, they're a team that are struggling in the league, but at the same time, this time of year, it was exactly a year ago, roughly, we went down to Luton and came back empty-handed. So even though on paper they might be one of the worst teams in the division, it's the Premier League. It doesn't work like that. That said, we've just had 2 games, scored 7 goals, let in 1 just about at the end. It was a bit poxy. I think all of us are of the opinion we can and should be going down with the same 11 to go and beat Ipswich, especially pre-Christmas and all that.
Well, we can't go down with the same 11. Joe Linton suspended.
Because it carried. Yes, you're right. Great shout. Okay, so to be fair, he got an old boot in the head, so he could.
Yeah, that looks nasty. Yeah.
So fair point. There'll be no Joe Linton.
It'll be Longstaff. Let's be honest about it. Or maybe Willock. Oh, maybe Willock.
Willock came on for Joe Linton. He did all right.
Yeah, that just popped in as well.
Yeah, I'd be fine with Joe Willock in there personally. Yeah. So give me your score prediction then for Ipswich away.
2-0 to Newcastle United. Alex Isak gets both of them.
Wowza.
Yeah.
Okay. I would absolutely take that. I'm going to go with a 2-1 then. I had 2-0 in my head, but you stole it because I'm too polite to let you go first. We'll go with a 2-1 simply because they've got Liam Delap doing good things for them.
They don't have Liam Delap doing good things for him. He is suspended also.
Is he?
Yes, he is. That's massive.
Wow. I need to do some research. I didn't realize he was suspended for that game. That is really, really good to hear. Yes. So they're kind of falling back then on obviously Sammy Smodix, but he usually plays kind of behind him.
He's a 10 really.
I wonder who they're sticking up there then. That's a plot twist and a half. All right, lads. Alan the Octopus is calling it 2-0 victory over Ipswich. 3 on the bounce, and we'll go into Christmas in a very happy black and white mood. I'm totally fine with that. Meet up happening for this game?
Bears and Woods, of course, there's a meet-up in the Bleaker. And we'll be there Saturday from 2 p.m. onwards. Well, I say 2 p.m. I don't think I've been there 2 p.m. in about 6 months. I'm perennially late, so I just apologise in advance. There does be people there from 2 o'clock is the easiest way for me to say it.
Important people will be there.
Important people. Yeah. The good people.
The great people. Alan arrives late and sneaks home early, so don't put any of your eggs in the Alan basket. All right, so if you're knocking around Dublin, make yourself known over in the Bleaker Street Bar as we get ready to go and beat Ipswich by a scoreline of 2-0, courtesy of Alexander Isak.
Absolutely.
I'd be totally fine with that for the weekend. Okie dokie. Well, that's us, folks. As I said, we're probably going to take a little week off next week. It is Christmas. Chris Show is liable to be kind of horizontally drunk for about 7 days solid. And our backs get sore from carrying him through this show. So we'll probably give ourselves a little break. Give yourselves a little break as well. And we're going to come back with a bang once the Christmas is past as we head for the new year and go full on into January transfer mode. And hopefully we'll be talking about wins against Ipswich and maybe wins against Aston Villa. And we might even know or be able to talk about what's going to happen in our Carabao Cup semi-final. Alan, Spurs are beating Man United 3-0 as it stands as we wrap up the show. So I think that's the answer. There'll be no Man United in the Carabao Cup semi-final, and nobody is sad about it.
Oh, shucks.
Shucks indeed. Well, Thank you all for listening. Thank you, Alan, for joining me. As we said, hit the old like and subscribe button. Leave some comments in underneath, down here somewhere on your screen. Let us know who your 3 preferred signings would be in January. And other than that, we'll say Happy Christmas to and from all of the Irish Mags.
Slán Awalya.
Until next time, how are the lads? Slán go fall, and we'll see you all very soon. Happy Christmas.
Good luck.